All right, is there a difference between universal will and free will? I think I should be starting with universal will because the majority of us are familiar with free will, which is an illusion, by the way. So, universal will exists inside our bodies because we have cells which do not have democratic freedoms to do as they please. In other words, all the cells inside our bodies exist due to their nature. And this nature is governed by information. This information determines that for every cell to exist, it must be created using a specific information as to what it must be like and what it must be its specialities. In other words, what it will eventually do once it's actually there. And once the cell is there, it operates according to its nature, which is to give us energy, to clean our bodies, and many other activities which they do. And the end result is that we end up being happy, healthy, and alive. So that's the notion of universal will from a microcosmic perspective. Now, if we were to look into the cosmos or the macro level, we seem to have different political organizations, different countries, different classes, genders, and many other reasons that we use to discriminate against each other. For instance, in a country like South Africa, we have 11 different languages and as many different indigenous or tribes as possible. But all these tribes will still belong to one race, the black race. And if you were to combine all different races, you still have one race, the human race. And this human race will be located inside or on top of a biological entity that we know as the planet. So the difference here is that on top of the Earth's surface, there seems to be a rebellion against this universal will. And this universal will, which is the Adonai of our existence, in other words, the prophecy, or the governing information as to why we came to exist into that dimension in the first place. Because we have to understand that for everything to exist, it must be planned. And as it exists, it's perceived by the mind so that it can remain information which can be used later on. So in so doing, we're saying that everything exists within the mind. In other words, nothing exists observation or escapes observation. With that being said, universal will refers to us subscribing to a collective consciousness or higher will. And this higher will is based on recognizing that we exist within an entity. Say, for instance, if there are cells inside of our bodies and we too exist inside or on this planet, the planet also is a part of the universe. The universe has been discovered by scientists. As a matter of fact, during my initiation in 2008, I was shocked to discover that we exist inside a human brain, because no one has ever told me about that. It was later on that I discovered that there are similarities, because what happened is that I looked back to what used to be the galaxies, and instead of seeing galaxies, I saw neurons, and I was so puzzled by that. So that I did my discoveries or investigations later on and discovered that science does agree that the universe is a brain. So with that being said, in us having the ability to imagine or think of anything or a scenario, we too exist inside a brain. And this brain being a personality or existing in a human being, because the brain doesn't exist in a vacuum or alone. So the same personality whom we exist inside of also exists in another dimension or universe, which is in another universe to infinity. And these are also in parallels. And so with this being said, that for this system to remain functional in perfect order, or in as well as in harmony, there must be a set of laws. And these laws would dictate that there is no free will. Because if there would be free will, everyone would deviate from these laws. And reality, as we know, it would break into pieces. And so here, the notion of universal will is such that all of us are not independent of this of our own nature. With that being said, we're trying to say that for a man to be a man, it's because there must be a woman to complement a man being a man. And the fact that no one can exist in his own world alone. No one has ever seen their own face without the aid of a mirror, and that mirror will be created by someone else. The clothes I'm wearing were made by someone else. This video I've shot so that it can be watched and understood by others who may help me advance in life and achieve what I believe I was born to achieve, which is the benefit of others. Also, as a child, hated school for one of the reasons because I was born with superior ancestral memory. And this is information or knowledge, superior knowledge, by the way, which we are born with. It's intuitive in the sense that it doesn't need a teacher. In a split second, you already understand the outcome of a situation. And what this does is that it enforces the person to work on their character so that they can retrieve as much information as possible. And it teaches the fact that we exist in this dimension so that you can use this information which you inherited from your ancestors as a gift as well as a requirement. more like you are being sent to achieve this within your generation, and thus will help your generation evolve to the next level, which will impact the next generation. And this is part of what we call universal will, because none of us are independent from each other. We're born from each other, we're responsible of each other, and we're supposed to take care of each other. And so with this being said, universal will seems to be the only will that remains, because it's the will that governs reality in the first place. Whereas personal will or free will can be seen as an illusion in the fact that none of us can escape this dimension as we choose. But suppose you were to escape the physical realm and go to the celestial worlds or upper dimensions, where you will regain your consciousness in its entirety. You'll be able to escape any dimension at will, meaning that free will does not exist for imperfect beings, because they have to take care of each other. And if they were to have free will, they would destroy each other, so much that human beings are a liability to life as well as to one another. We're the ones destroying the planet rather than any other way around. And so free will only exists, as I'm saying, in higher dimensions, only where you can retrieve the entire spectrum of your intelligence, meaning that when your mind can operate at the speeds of light and you can no longer make stupid mistakes. And thus you will be able to create worlds at will, destroy them at will, enter any dimension at will, and escape whenever you like. But if you are born into a world and you are forced to subscribe to its rules, it means that you are no longer you've lost your free will. As a matter of fact, as a child, one of my first words I said when I first encountered nature were, "You are here also, there is no escaping you." I say this referring to nature as well as myself, whom I know as God. As a matter of fact, the nature that I saw outside, in other words, the universe, was a reflection of my intelligence or brain. And so I said this was referring to myself. And I looked further, expecting to hear vibrations or electromagnetic fields, meaning that everything would have been moving, so that everything is everything, or all things occupy the same locality or space. But this did not happen, and so I realized that it was due to me being born with poor ancestral memory. Not poor ancestral memory, that I was born with bad genes. And these bad genes are due to the fact that there's been ignorance in this world for a very long time concerning our existence. And so with this being said, I quickly realized that I'd lost my free will, because having a physical body, I knew that I was locked in a world of time as well as matter, where people were manipulated via hunger, pain, including assassinations. And with all the knowledge that I had, I still could not escape this dimension, because I'd lost my free will by the virtue of being a human being with other imperfect human beings. And so the summary here is that free will does not exist, but it's an illusion of imperfect human beings. But it only exists within higher dimensions, and it's reserved for perfect beings. And that only universal will dictates imperfect beings, such as us human beings and the cells inside our bodies. Because collectively with the plants, animals, etc. would make up this single entity which we know as the universe being God. And that's the bottom line.